Hey everybody, this is Michael, back again. This is going to be one of my personal thoughts and musings rant. I made the mistake of going on social media for longer than I should. I posted a video earlier, and I go on one or one or two social media sites and just post the video link. See if that anybody wants check if the video's there. They have the link, make it easy, that whole thing, blah blah. And as always, I spent a little too much time on there than I probably should have. And it kind of just doom scrolling for a little bit until I can't tolerate it anymore. One subject that I don't really seem to understand fully, like I get it, is this acceptance of everything. And don't get me wrong, you gotta accept there are certain facets of life you absolutely have to accept. I'm a bald person. I cannot grow hair. I have to accept that. And that's it. Um, did I lament over it? Yeah, for a very short amount of time I did. Um, but this acceptance of just everything is not good. It's not, because there are certain things as individuals we cannot accept, as there are certain things as a community and a society and ultimately a whole as a country, and even further that as human beings all, inhabiting the same floating space rock. There are certain things that we simply cannot accept. And, if you are unhappy with your, body, weight, if you're overweight, obese, big boned, whatever the term is nowadays, in order for you to get healthier, to become stronger, more fit, slimmer, whatever you want, you have to look at yourself and say, I do not accept myself how I am now. Now, that doesn't mean to self-lambast. That doesn't mean to hate yourself. It doesn't mean to be negative. What it is you just simply say, I don't accept my body type right now. And here's what I'm going to do to change it. Here's what I'm going to do to improve upon it. And that's a huge issue, I feel, is we need to accept ourselves. And we need to accept ourselves as human beings. And that's the most important, is that we are flawed. We are, we can be slow. We can be dumb. We can be fat. But as soon as you accept that, you're accepting all your flaws and imperfections as they are and saying that I don't need to improve upon them. And that, I believe, just defeats the whole meaning and purpose of life itself, because we're constantly, I hate this corporate saying, but it's true. If you're in life, if you're not growing, you're dying. And that is on individual base. That's exactly what it is, because we don't reach like the age of 30 and just plateau and know everything we need to know, because then you will get stuck. If you become a cashier, you learn skills, but then you become manager and you're like, oh, well, that's all I need to know. I've accepted everything I know, and I've accepted the fact that I've accepted myself wholly and completely, and I don't need to improve. Well, that means that you will always be manager and you'll never become executive, because executives, they're constantly learning new things. Bodybuilders are constantly learning new techniques, new nutrition, diets. Um, we can't, the level of acceptance has gotten a little bit much. And because I feel like the people who are preaching this universal acceptance, they have good intentions, but unfortunately, a lot of evil things have been done in the name of good intentions. And we have to accept the fact that there are people who would use these things to their advantage. There are people who, if you want to identify as the other gender and you have legitimate, reasons, and this is always what you felt, go ahead and do it. But you have to also accept the consequences of switching genders, because you may not fully understand. And I know of a writer, I believe, I want to say her name is Nora Vincent, and she did this experiment of where she became a man for a while to see what it was like to be a man. And um, in her book, she talked about how she had no idea. I'm sorry. She had no idea how hard it was for men, and how essentially there was she expressed a level of cruelty or towards men. I don't believe that's the actual word, but Nora Vincent, check out her book. Uh, and because there is no real intimacy amongst men, like because you talk about brotherhood and companionship, that's there to a certain extent between men, but as a man, I look at another man, I not only see a man, but I also see another competitor of the same resources. If I go into a job and I see, I'm not like, oh, hey, buddy, you're my brother, brother in arms. No, no, like, are you trying for that manager position? Because I am too. Now we're in competition. Now we are rivals. And, or you go to the bar, like, there's another man there. Well, you are competing for maybe the same woman or the attention, or you want to look like the alpha male in the room, and there can only be one alpha, right? Like, so that's just some things we have to accept, is that there's a dichotomy here between genders, between races, between cultures that may not be fully understood, and we can't really accept everything that just comes our way. So I mean, we can't, if a man acts a certain way, he won't be accepted. And if that man, and if that person is fat, and because a fat man doesn't get dates, period. That's just what it is. And like, yeah, there's always general exceptions, but a fat broke man does not get dates. He does not get women, and that's something he has to accept. That while he's fat and broke, he will not be attractive. Statistically speaking, it's just what it is, unfortunately. So with that being said, he can accept the fact that he is fat and broke, and he will never, find a mate. Or he can choose to reject himself as he is, as fat and broke, and then he can work on it. He no longer accepts himself as what he is, and he wants to become better as someone else. And so that is where you can get stronger. You go hit the gym, and you can go from fat to skinny to ripped or whatever, and you can get a job, and then you go from broke to decent money to good money. But you can't do that if you just accept you as you are completely. Like, you have to accept some things and you have to reject others. And another example, like, okay, let's say you have a person that coming from another country, another culture, and in that culture it was okay for them to beat their wives. Do we accept that? Do we put the risk of this woman, of their wife, in this country? Our culture is that women can live freely and without fear and not without being harmed by any person. Do we then suspend our beliefs in our culture to allow him to beat his wife? I mean, like, these are some really difficult questions, but unfortunately these are questions we have to ask, because we have to find out where that line is of what we accept is. We have to understand what we do accept and what we do not accept. And unfortunately, the level of acceptance isn't universal. Some people can say, oh, well, that was a terrible example you said about the man being fat. Well, statistically speaking, majority of women will not accept him as a mate. So why are we preaching acceptance and all these, universal acceptance, and yet it's not really practiced? Because it's not logical. We can't accept everything. We can't accept how we are if we're flawed. We have to look at our flaws and be like, hey, I do not accept the fact that I can only bench 35 pounds. So you go in and you bench 35 pounds as much as you can, and then you bench 45, and then 55, and then that is how you improve. That's how you get better, by not accepting your flaws. You have to embrace your flaws, yes, and you have to accept the fact that you have flaws, but you can reject your limitations by constantly working towards it. And that is kind of what I feel like a lot of people have lost sight of. It's just the fact that they want to be accepted. Everybody wants to be accepted. I get it. It's nice, but it can also be incredibly damaging if we just accept everything. If would you accept Hitler, modern day Hitler? I mean, his views. That's his truth, right? Jews were bad. Because maybe he was beaten up by a bunch of Jewish kids when he was when he was a kid. Maybe and this is what it is. So at what point does acceptance become too much? What point do we reject certain behavior or certain individuals based on their ideology? Because ideology is also the main thing that some of the greatest atrocities in the world have been committed for. Well, yeah, maybe I should stop quoting these historically bad people because one day YouTube will find me, maybe. But there's got to be a level of where we don't accept things. We can embrace them as truth of the world, that the truth is the fact that there are certain people out there that will take advantage of any system that they can so they can leverage themselves, for personal gain. Unfortunately, that is a fact. And that is a truth, and we have to accept the facts and truth, but we don't have to accept certain characteristics, certain ideologies. If we can reject them so we can improve upon them, that is what we have to do. So if you're fat, you don't have to accept the fact that you're fat. You have to accept the truth that you are overweight, but you don't have to accept your limitations of being fat. You don't have to accept yourself as that fat person. And use that, resentment of being fat or being, whatever, to get yourself in the gym. And I'm using this as an example because this is exactly what I did. I was a fat kid. And I really kind of looked at myself and I was like, you know what, I don't accept myself. And, I wanted to be more successful. So I started working more. I started working out. And, so far it's worked out pretty well. Of course, there's always some improvement, but then again, what are you looking for? What is your goal? To be rich as Elon Musk, and then to not work, not to contribute, not to, then what are you then? Aren't you just some kind of weird parasite? Because even Elon Musk is constantly improving, and he's the world's richest man, I guess, still. I don't know. I don't keep track of other people's money. But that's the thing, is you're either growing or you're dying. And you can accept yourself as you are and then plateau for the rest of your life. Or you can accept the fact that you need to keep improving and keep going. And just, not accept, your limitations. You have to embrace them, acknowledge them. But by accepting it just means, oh, well, that's it. It's like you hitting a wall. I accept the fact that this wall's here and I can't go any further. That's not the case when it comes to self-improvement, when it comes to your own, thing. So, I don't know. It just, at what point, what don't you accept in your life? I want to hear that. Like what's something that you don't accept, and for whatever reason, and you also have to look at, maybe you're sometimes too harsh on what you don't accept and do accept, and especially in dating, because we're all flawed human beings. We all have our baggage. It's, 2023? I don't believe anyone here has lived a nice, comfortable life free of baggage. Everyone's bringing, some kind of trauma to life nowadays, because life is traumatic. And that's a fact that we have to accept. We don't have to accept the trauma in ourselves to make it so that way we're I was in this relationship and they cheated on me, and that's, you've accepted that fact. Well, you don't have to accept that behavior anymore, and when it comes to that, it's just simply because a lot of people are wanting their cake and eating it too. They want to jump into this relationship and think it's going to be perfect no, marriage is work. Relationships are work. There's some days where they just don't, they're just not having a great day, and there's literally nothing you can do to improve upon it. There's been plenty of days my wife comes home, from work because work stresses her out, and as many of my corny jokes as I crack, and or as many dishes I wash or anything. Like, she'll still come home and still have a bad day, and that's it. And so what do? You are ultimately powerless right there. There's nothing you can do. So what, you want to leave and find someone who will laugh at every dumb joke you make? No. Like, you just have to accept the good days and the bad days. You have to accept, the fact that you do, have limitations, but you don't have to accept yourself as a limited person. And by accepting so much, you then settle on a lot. So, and again, this is one of my personal rantings. Again, this is all inspired because I spent too much time on social media. Probably like 10 minutes. But man, that was an endearing 10 minutes. I will say that. So, but anyway, accept that we are flawed people. Accept that we all have issues, that we all bring some kind of trauma. But we don't have to accept who we are and where we are. Because if we do, then that means we almost accept the fact that we're not going to improve, and that we're okay being broke and fat and whatever you may be that makes you unhappy. Because you can't accept yourself, and you feel like you're going to get some kind of validation from the world, and you're going to somehow feel better about yourself if you can get everyone else to accept you. But that's not the case. I mean, if you're a broke fat man, you're not going to get a date, statistically speaking. So you can either accept that fact or choose not to accept yourself as you are now and improve upon it. Yeah. So I wish the best for you guys. I really hope, this, everything goes your way, that you get that promotion, you get that job, you find the love of your life. But just remember, there are certain things you shouldn't accept, because you can accept it if you want to keep improving. So just also accept yourself as you are. Embrace your flaws, but work on them. Okay? Everybody, take it easy.